When people see this name, they're gonna be so skeptic. It would actually make even me skeptic. I guess that I should mention that I don't even have Deep Blue Skate and Doubling Season inside this deck. Normally, Super Friends has always been considered a bit too slow, and Planeswalkers is definitely a bit too slow. But the format has changed over the years. It's gotten a little bit slower, a little bit more grindier, a little bit more controllier. And something really happened. Spark of EDH. They printed some actually good Planeswalkers for the competitive EDH format, and Sisay can actually fetch these guys in instant speed and interact with your opponents. Let's say someone is trying to search his or her library. You find Ashiok and they can't search. You kinda stop that completely. The same with preventing people from drawing cards, or preventing people from casting spells during your turn. Also, we've gotten some really good legendary Oath enchantments like Oath of Nissa, Oath of Chandra, and Oath of Liliana. Now, Oath of Nissa is quite good because it will give Sisay +1/+1, and it's probably gonna draw you a card. Oath of Chandra is 3 damage in instant speed if you activate Sisay and find it. That's quite good. You can destroy combo creatures and maybe Thrasius or Tymna. And Oath of Liliana is forcing all opponents to sacrifice a creature, a good edict effect in instant speed. And these enchantments are synergizing with Planeswalkers, so now we have a good bunch of Planeswalkers that are good in general that Sisay can find in instant speed, and we have some cards that will synergize and make Planeswalker Tribal actually almost a semi-small thing. But I've actually found a way to make a Super Friends Planeswalker Infinite combo, and therefore the name Sisay Superfriends is actually quite fitting. And I've also found a way to assemble the combo by only 1 card, and it actually goes pretty damn fast. And here's the card you need: Orochi Leafcaller for only 1 green mana. You actually need a tiny bit more. There's a setup demand to make this combo actually functional, but it's not a big setup. We're gonna get to that pretty soon. So what is this? It's a Snake Shaman from Kamigawa, and it's common. For 1 green mana, activation doesn't require to tap it, so you can actually activate this even though it's suffering from summoning sickness. And you will add 1 mana of any color. So this is probably much, you could say, color fixing. It's filtering mana from green to any color, and then it's a 1/1. So put this creature card into play and activate Sisay's ability for Verberg mana and find something legendary, like Gaia's Cradle, that will tap for amount of green mana equal to the amount of creatures you control. So here is the first setup demand, that you need to have 5 creature cards in play to be able to tap Gaia's Cradle for Verberg mana, or it taps for a lot of green mana, but you will convert that green mana into Verberg mana, so basically Gaia's Cradle will tap and activate Sisay. Therefore, we can activate Sisay immediately because Gaia's Cradle will enter the battlefield untapped. So the next part in the chain is gonna be something... It's gonna be legendary. And it's gonna be a Planeswalker, a Miniature the Fate Shifter. And here comes the second demand for this combo to function. Sisay has to be a 4/4 to be able to put a Miniature into play, because a Miniature has a converted mana cost of 3. So you need permanent in play that is legendary and something about 2 colors. That isn't that hard to achieve. But what is this black little girl from a horror movie actually gonna do for us? Well, her -1 reads: exile another target permanent you own, then return it to the battlefield under your control. You can flicker Gaia's Cradle and make it come into play untapped once more. Therefore, you can activate Sisay again. This time we're gonna find Nicobolas the Dragon God. Why would you wanna have him? Well, he has a passive ability that reads: Nicobolas the Dragon God has all loyalty abilities of all other Planeswalkers on the battlefield. He has Aminatu's -1 flickering ability, so now you can flicker Gaia's Cradle a second time and activate Sisay again. Oh yeah, one more thing. Aminatu will actually give you all the colors you need to make Sisay grow, capable of finding the Dragon God. Now the last thing we're gonna grab is this, to finally seal the deal: Oath of Teferi. When Oath of Teferi enters the battlefield, exile another target permanent you control. Return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. We don't really care that much about that text. That is pretty much just being used whenever you want to protect, let's say, a permanent someone is trying to destroy. It's the secondary text we like. You may activate the loyalty abilities of planeswalkers you control twice each turn rather than only once. Now, Nicobolas and Aminatu have activated once, but when this comes into play, they may activate again, and from the remaining of the game they may activate twice. So what you do is that you activate Aminatu once more and exile Nicobolas. Nicobolas will now disappear and he will come back, and now he can activate twice. So these two will have a creepy relationship where they will exile each other and do something else. For example, Nicobolas could first exile Aminatu, then +1 to draw a card, and each opponent exiles a card from their hand or a permanent they control. So from this you have infinite draws and infinite exile your opponent's board state and hand. Now Aminatu could flicker a land, so from here you basically have infinite mana and infinite card draw. I usually enjoy to win the game with Ashiok Dream Render, because once you have exiled all of your opponent's hands and board state, you simply exile their entire libraries. If they haven't conceded, just find this with your infinite mana and flicker Oath of Kaya infinitely, dealing infinite damage and gaining infinite life. So basically what we have here is a planeswalker chain effect that is tutoring for a next card, a next card, and a next card. And when you finalize the complete chain, you suddenly have an infinite combo. That's what you basically have from this. And everything was enabled from the only one green card, Orochi Leafcaller. This is the minimum requirement you need to have in play in order to finalize and assemble that Super Friends Planeswalker combo. For example, Lavinia, a Saurius Renegade, will make Sisay into a 4/4 capable of finding Aminatu. And here you have 1, 2, 3, 4 and then 5 creature cards, making Gaia's Cradle capable of tapping for 5 mana. But we even have an alternative to Orochi Leafcaller, Bloom Tender. Tap it. For each color among permanents you control, add 1 mana of that color to your mana pool. If Bloom Tender is capable of tapping for Verberg mana, you can do the close enough the same thing. Or can you? You actually can't. So for example, if you use Aminatu to flicker Bloom Tender will come back into play untapped, but it will be suffering from summoning sickness. But we have something legendary that will fix this, that goes by the name Derevi. So when Derevi Imperial Tacticianer enters the battlefield or a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may tap or untap target permanent. So now you begin with finding this from the first activation, probably gaining some colors, so this will tap for more mana. Then you untap Bloom Tender because of this trigger, tap it, find Aminatu. Aminatu will now flicker Derevi, which means Derevi will re-enter play, get a new trigger to untap this. If Bloom Tender isn't capable of tapping for all 5 colored mana once you have Derevi in play, you can actually fix this. Simply go to combat with Sisay and maybe some other legendary creatures, hit face and get more Derevi untapped trigger effects to untap your other lands that will tap for black and red, and now you should be able to find Aminatu. Now green is really good at tutoring for creatures, especially green creatures, such as Green Sun Zenith. For only 2 mana, you will directly put Orochi Leafcaller into play. With Final Devastation, for 3 mana, you will put Snake into play. And remember, the Snake can suffer from summoning sickness and we can still win on that turn. But the Pirate Queen Sisay can actually find Orochi Leafcaller all on her own. There's a legendary guy that goes by the name of Yisan the Wandering Bard. Now, with only 1 Yisan activation, you can find a creature on CMC 1. Guess which one? But in this deck I also have a Rebuilder that could reanimate and bring Orochi Leafcaller back from the graveyard. Alessia who smiles at death, a legendary card you can find with your commander Sisay. So if Orochi Leafcaller gets counterspelled because your opponent knows what you're up to, you can tutor and find Alessia, attack with Alessia and bring Orochi Leafcaller back into play. If an opponent is casting a kill spell, a spot removal targeting Sisay, because that's usually a really good decision to do, you can respond with activating Sisay if Sisay is a 4/4 or greater. You can find Alesha who smiles at that, and you let Sisay go to the graveyard. That is a little bit risky, but if you're sure this is gonna go out well, then it's fine. Attack with Alesha on your next turn and activate her triggered ability to put Sisay back into play. Now Sisay is a 2/2 inside the graveyard. Even though we have a lot of permanents in play, she is still a 2/2 in the graveyard, and Alesha can bring that into action. So now we've talked a lot about how this deck wins the game with a planeswalker combo, how it assembles its combo, and how it rebuilds its combo. Let's actually talk a little bit more about the Sisay Superfriends, how this deck actually plays, and the planeswalker tribal. We've actually already looked at these cards before, but they have a good synergy. So for example, if you've put Oath of Liliana into play, because you needed that, and then later on you put Amenatu into play, you can use Amenatu to flicker Oath of Liliana to force your opponents to sacrifice a creature again. Or if you want to be a little bit more specific, you can flicker Oath of Chandra. You could also later on in the game tutor and find Duck Faden from your deck with Sisay, minus him and steal an artifact, and then immediately you minus Amenatu and flicker Duck Faden to steal another artifact. A lot of the cards you've currently seen I've actually played in another kind of deck, Sisay Overrun, which was a prototype build that didn't have a single win con, that was trying to just interact completely and outvalue, outgrind, and eventually just overrun with zombie tokens and other legendary permanents and just kill our opponents. And something I discovered was that Brago, King Eternal, was a grind boss. And some of my subscribers actually called my Sisay Overrun deck for 5-color Brago. Brago is actually quite similar to Oath of Teferi, making it possible to activate Planeswalkers twice each turn. But he's actually better, because if you have Narset and Oath of Teferi, that will actually stop. But if you have Narset and Brago, you will reset Narset's loyalty count, so you can just sit there and activate her ongoingly. But also with Brago you will flicker your oaths, and that's just gonna get out of hand. So this is definitely the king of grind. The last thing I wanna say is that Sisay is actually really good at protecting her friends. You see, Sisay has a really huge stat line, power and toughness, but also she can find flying creatures and other creatures blockers to protect your planeswalkers if they get attacked by your opponents that wanna get rid of them. If you wanna take a look on how I have put this deck together, in the description below of this video there's a link to a tapped out deck list. Oh yes, one last thing guys, I'm actually in the process of making a Sisay cEDH primer video that is gonna be a pretty long video compared to my usual standards. That video will basically talk a lot about how to build Sisay in general, how to pilot her in general, and things to think about. If you're a Sisay fan like me, you're definitely gonna like it. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like what I do and you wanna support me, consider sharing my videos or even checking out my Patreon page. Also, purchasing cards from the TCG Players website using the affiliate link down below will also help the channel grow. So a big thank you to all of you.